To create the socks, I think what I'm going to do is just create a cylinder and put it right in here around the ankle. And then I'll use the multi-resolution modifier and the sculpt tools to sculpt folds and creases in the socks. Now, currently we have the character's toes sticking out here. And I think what I'm going to do is delete these feet so we don't have these while we're working on the socks. And ultimately, I'm going to be deleting all of the faces underneath the clothes. We won't need those as we rig the character. However, what I would say is, since we've put the work in to creating the feet and the body underneath the clothes, it'd be worth saving it for use in the future. Say if he needed to be in a swimsuit, or if he needed to run barefoot, or something like that. So you want to save the work you've done. Now, you may have noticed that as I've been going through the course here, each file has its own specific number. Like this one is file 030. The previous one was 029, etc. The way I've been doing this is not only do I save the scene here, but I will then press Control-Shift-S to bring up the Save As menu, and then I'll just press the plus key on the numpad. You can see here it's 30. If I press the plus key on the numpad, it will increment to 31, and then I'll click Save. So that's the way I increment the numbers of the scenes very quickly as I'm working. And I would suggest that you do this as well. When you're working on a project, press Control-Shift-S and then the plus key on the numpad, and then hit Enter. And that will just increment the file number, giving you a backup of the work you've already done. So you never lose all the work if a file goes corrupt or you make a mistake or something like that. All right, so knowing that I have file 029 previously with the feet in it, I can confidently go ahead and delete the feet here, knowing that I have a backup in another file. So all I'm going to do is just take this like this and delete this whole area right here. I mean, we could also press Control minus and go down to here if you want, wherever you think. But I think for now, I'm just going to delete this so that we don't have these overlapping areas with the toes and the heel, etc. Now, we still have a bit of overlap here with the heel, now don't we? So we could just take this and move this in as well. There we go. Now, for the socks, I will find an edge loop here. Maybe Alt-click this edge and press Shift-S2 to bring the cursor to that point. And then, if I press Shift-A, that's where our new object will be created, and I'll create a cylinder right here. Now, I don't need 32 sides. I'm going to bring that down to 16. I'm going to make sure I do not have any cap fills by choosing nothing here. And then it's pretty big, so I'm going to take this down to 0.1, tab 0.2. There we go. Now I can just hit the S key and scale this down and get it in place. So maybe if I scaled it out about like this in the X, and then in the Y, I can maybe scale it out about like this. Like that. Now I think I could also take these shoes, move them back just a smidge like that. There we go. All right, so we've got the base objects of the socks in. Now let's add some edge loops here. I'm going to tab into edit mode and press Control R, and I'm going to add enough edges so we get fairly square polygons here. There we go. Now what I can do is add that multi-resolution modifier. Come over here to the modifiers panel, say add multi-resolution, and here we go. Now I think I'm going to get rid of these here. I'll right-click and join area, and then right-click and join area here, so we can get rid of those. Now here, what we need to do is increase the number of subdivisions. We currently are at 0, which means if we tab into edit mode, that's all the resolution that we have. But if we hit subdivide here, we can increase that a bit. You can see we've got smaller polygons now. I'm going to come up here and go to Object and Shade Smooth, so that smooths that out. Now, if we tab back into Edit mode, the resolution here is still the same. And that's because this is a modifier. This isn't a permanent change unless we come over here and click Apply. Now, one thing I think I probably need to do is select this edge here and go ahead and hit E and S and bring that in so we close off that top area. All right, so there it is with the multi-resolution modifier on it. We can press subdivide as many times as we want, but the more subdivisions we have on this, the more polygons there are going to be and the slower it's going to be here in the viewport and in rendering and animation. So I'm going to try and keep it fairly low poly here. All right, now what let's do is let's begin using our sculpt tools. Let's come over here and go to Object and Sculpt, and now we have all these sculpt tools here, and these are wonderful icons, but there are so many, it's hard to keep track sometimes which icon is which. So let's just grab this right here and pull it out so we can actually see the titles of what these tools are. I'm going to begin with the Draw tool, and currently the strength is at 0.5 and the radius is at 50 pixels, but if I hit the F key and move the mouse, I can increase or decrease the radius of the brush. Or if I hit Shift F, I can increase or decrease the strength. So I'm just going to leave the strength around 0.6. And what I'm going to do is with the Draw tool, I will just begin pulling these out like this. And then what I'll do is hold Control to cut in. What I'm doing now is currently using a mouse, and it's not ideal, but for this it's certainly usable. If you have a pen and tablet, I would suggest using that, but I just wanted to show you with this particular project, if you don't have a pen and tablet, you can use a mouse as well. Now I can come over here to the Smooth tool. You can also press Shift S for that and smooth this back a bit. You can see I can smooth that back in like that. So this is all we're going to do is just begin pulling and cutting and moving so we get some folds and creases for the socks. So what I'll do is I'll come back here to the Draw tool and I'll begin with this right up here, and then I'll press Control and cut in like this. You see how you can cut in and then pull out. So maybe I'll shrink that down just a bit and cut in like this, then pull out like this. So just however you think it could use a little bit of sculpting here to get a sense that this is a sock that's got creases and folds in it. I think I'll add a crease in here again. Now, some other tools that you can use here is the Inflate tool. It will not just draw and bulge out the mesh, but it will pull out all the parts underneath the brush. So if I just kind of pull out here, you can see how it kind of inflates that as if you're just putting air in it. And also you can use the Grab tool. You can just grab a portion of it and just pull it out or in like this. Maybe I will pull some out in here. I'll increase the strength here and maybe pull some out here so we can close up that hole right there. Now keep in mind, I do have the mirror tool on here to mirror across the x-axis on the object itself. And because of that, we're kind of getting a uniform shape on each side along the x-axis. And maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want to turn this off and have it be a little bit more non-uniform. So maybe we want a brush stroke across here like this at an angle so that one side's a little bit different than the other. All right, so let's say we've got our socks pretty much the way we want them. Now, what I'd like to do is take this and put it over on the other side, but I don't want it to be quite the same. I don't want it to be just the same as the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it and move it over, but then I'm going to do a little bit of extra tweaking just so it isn't quite or exactly the same. So what I'll do is back to object mode. I'll just take this and press Shift D and X and move it over a bit. So it's something like this. And then I'll come in here and go back to my sculpt tools and just do a little bit of changing around so it isn't quite the same. Now, one thing I need to mention here is that this object is said, and I don't know if you saw, I got a little error or a little warning down at the bottom, that these objects are non-uniform scale. And what that means is, if we go back to object mode here, we can hit the N key, and you can see here that the values for the scale are not uniform. Sometimes if you don't have uniform scale, your results when sculpting can be unpredictable. So let's go ahead and apply this scale here. I'm going to press Control A and apply the scale, and I'll do the same thing over here. Control A and apply the scale. All right, so here's our two socks. I still feel like they are a little too similar. I think what I'm going to do is come over here and choose the inflate tool and inflate the front out on this one just a bit. And maybe on the sides here. And then maybe cut in with the draw tool just a little bit over here. Hold that control key down and cut in here. Give that a try. All right. Looks like we're ready to begin cleaning up the model so we can start UV mapping the character.